So my name's Jess Goddard, I'm an accountant, I live in Cheadle, and today I'm going to tell you about my recent experiences with the NHS. So I started getting letters to go for my cervical smear when I was 25, and I didn't go. I ignored the letters, they kept coming, and as it happens I didn't go for my smear until I turned 28. I can't tell you particularly in retrospect why I didn't go, probably apart from the fact that I'm a bit of a prude. It's not pleasant, and I always had other things to do. And then when I turned 28, I went to see our nurse practitioner, Nurse Costello, for something unrelated, for a prescription. And she noted that I hadn't had my smear, and she basically didn't let me leave the room until I'd either had the smear or booked an appointment, and she was very sort of direct about that. So I booked the appointment, and I went, had my smear, and it came back with severe abnormalities, or high grade abnormalities, maybe about 2 weeks later. At that point I wasn't particularly concerned or overly worried, because I'd known quite a lot of people who'd had smears and it'd come back with abnormalities, and I'd read up on it and knew that it didn't necessarily mean anything overly serious at that stage. So after I'd got the abnormal results, I got an appointment to go to the colposcopy clinic at Stepping Hill for about a week later, which I attended, met Sister Clark, who performed loop diathermy, and explained that I'd get the results maybe a couple of weeks later. They'd write to confirm that everything was okay, and that's very much how it felt, like standard practice, all routine. Again, nothing to worry about at this stage. A couple of weeks later, on a Thursday, I got a letter, and it was actually an appointment for the next day, for the Friday, to see Dr. George at the colposcopy clinic, and I just assumed it was a mistake because I'd already been to the colposcopy clinic, and I was awaiting my results. So I phoned up the ward, explained, and the lady I spoke to said that no, it was right, I needed to come in and discuss my results with Dr. George. At that point I knew that it wasn't going to be good news, and I really sort of prepared myself for the fact that it was likely to be cancer. So I went in the next day with my mum and met with Dr. George, and he explained so nicely and sweetly that it was cancerous, that I almost had to come out and, I said to my mum, it is cancer, isn't it? Because I the way that he explained it was just so gentle, but he explained that it'd been caught very, very early, it was completely treatable, and then he said, let's get you in for a cone biopsy on Monday. I've got a list on Monday. He said either he would do it or his colleague would do it. I still had a lot of questions, and he'd sort of run out of time. He said he had a meeting, and so he said, why don't you and your mum go down to the cafe, get a coffee, and when I finished in my meeting I'll come and get you and we'll carry on talking. And it just felt like he had all the time in the world for me, which just made such a difference. So had my pre-op, went in on Monday, had the cone biopsy, and they said that I would probably hear back in a couple of weeks to confirm one way or another whether it'd come back with clean margins or not. So that was on the Monday. On the Friday of the same week, I got a phone call from Jo, the cancer nurse, who said that they'd rushed my results through the lab because they wanted to be able to tell me before the weekend that it had come back with clear margins and that was fine. I think a lot of people have got a very negative opinion of the NHS. You hear a lot of stories, I guess founded or not, about waiting times and about the service not being personal. And my experience is the polar opposite. I couldn't have asked for anything more from start to finish, and it wasn't just one place, it was everywhere along the process, starting with Nurse Costello, who I feel like I owe my life to everyone at the Jasmine Suite at Stepping Hill, Dr. George and the nurses, and then on the ward, and still, today I go for my 6 monthly checkups and I still get the same level of care. Everything has been quicker than I would ever expect from NHS or private. I went in, got the results on a Friday, got the treatment on the Monday, got the results on the Friday. It was like a complete blur. It was like it was fixed and over before I even had a minute to almost digest it or worry about it. And on top of that, they were so caring and thoughtful and had all the time that I needed. It was available, right up to Dr. George telling me that if I ever had questions or needed to speak to him, just make an appointment with him. I couldn't have asked for anything more. What I would say to other women is, if you're putting off your smear, don't. If you're getting letters through the post about having it, they're sending them for a reason. If you're not intentionally putting it off and planning on doing it next week but have been for a while, don't just pick up the phone and make an appointment. Cervical cancer, if it's detected early enough, it's easily treatable, but better than that, if you go for your smears when you're supposed to, it's preventable in the majority of cases, completely preventable, which I find, actually, now I think about it, amazing to think that we have this at our disposal. It's a 5-minute test, albeit maybe not overly pleasant, but it's free and it could save your life. If I'd had my smear at 25, I may well have been able to prevent having to have the operation and save myself a lot of worry. I was very lucky that it was picked up when I did go for my smear at 28, but please just learn from my mistake.